In this video, I want to show you one simple drill that you can do at home or on the court that's going to get you more efficiency out of your forehand. And what do I mean by efficiency? I mean you can swing easier and get more power on your stroke without adding a ton of effort. This is what the pros do, but this is the problem that most recreational players have, is because they don't know how to time this correctly. Either they're swinging and their arms chasing and pulling their body, or they're opening up too early and it doesn't feel natural and easy. Now, you might be wondering why I have this jump rope, because the jump rope is the key to understanding how to do this. Because when we jump rope very efficiently. And what I mean by that is, if I'm jump roping, what am I doing? Nice and easy. But the biggest thing about having efficiency on your forehand is using gravity, which I'm doing right now. And what I mean by that is, there's this moment where as I start the jump rope, the rope comes up and then gravity takes it down and I keep it going. Just in that section, you'll see it here. When the rope comes up, and all I have to do is right there add a little bit of force with my arm. Now, if I add my body, look what happens. If I do that same thing and I start using my body, it goes quicker. Now, you might be thinking, like, how does this work with the forehand? Because that doesn't look like a forehand swing. Well, let me show you. If we jump rope backwards, what's this motion look like? It looks kind of like a forehand, doesn't it? Meaning, as the rope goes down, if I just take what gravity's done, which is basically send the rope down, and then at the bottom of that, use some force, it speeds the rope up. Now, let's start doing some drills to show you exactly how to do this with the racket. So the very first drill is understanding how we can use our wrists. And so just like this, when I'm doing my jump rope, and the rope's going around, my hand's nice and loose, and it creates a bit of lag. The rope and my hand aren't moving at the same pace. So just like that happens, what we want to do is make sure there's a little bit of lag when I'm doing this. Now, there's two really important things. I'm controlling my racket face, so my racket's not going wild and the racket constantly changing. I'm keeping the racket face consistent. The next thing is, because there's a little bit of lag, you can see it here, the racket comes down and it's chasing my hand that keeps it going. This is really important because it adds relaxation and allows your hand to work and let the racket drop. And so all I want you to do is make a little circle like this. And all I'm doing is having my hand nice and loose enough that, just kind of like a jump rope with my wrists, I'm keeping it going. The second part is we want to start working with our arm swing. And so what I mean by that is how we take the racket back. So we have the racket moving here, but then we need our arm taking the racket back. And so what I want you to do is almost keep your elbow a little bit bent and take it back in this fashion. So I'm not taking my whole arm. We don't want our swing to be too big. And so have my elbow bent a little bit, it keeps it nice and compact. And you will see when pros take the racket back that they take their elbow back here, which is totally fine. But we're not going to focus on that in this video. We're going to focus on keeping it right here. So if you did want to take it back, totally fine. And so now the next drill I want you to do is just take a ball and time it. And so the key with timing is we want to try to keep the racket moving. Okay? Doesn't mean it has to always be fast. It can slow down and speed up, but avoid the stopping. Now, some players may stop, but it means that they just don't get the same level of efficiency. What you see with some of the best players is they slow down and keep the racket moving and then drop it. And this is one big issue that a lot of players face when they're copying other players. They're hitting their spots, but they don't have that level of efficiency to make sure that when they swing, they can use their body the entire way. So the drill I want you to do is just have the racket here, and remember the circles we're making, and we're gonna combine that with the elbow and the wrist. All I'm gonna do is toss the ball up and keep it moving and speed it up. Now, we're not using my body yet, but I just want you to get used to keep it moving and speed it up, because I'm letting gravity play out, and then I'm gonna speed it up with my hand. Now, the next part is we gotta start using our body. I want you to take your racket and put it on your pelvis, my front pelvis. So that would be my left hip and front pelvis right here. And all I want you to do is take your hand and make that circle that we made and then hit your racket. Just like that. And you're probably thinking, what's happening here? So this is your swing, but now what I want you to do is make sure your racket runs away from your hand before it gets there. So right now, the racket's not running away from my hand, but right around here, as my racket comes down here, I want you to keep this much space between your racket and your hand. So you're thinking, how are we gonna do this? I'm gonna do it because I'm gonna move my hip. And so what happens is, as I come around, my hip's gonna move, moving the racket away from my hand, and I can finish. And so this is a great little drill here to make sure you're moving your hips. I'm naturally moving my hip and my shoulder. The next progression from here is taking now and trading, putting your racket in your racket hand and your left hand here. So what happens is when the racket gets here, you're doing the same exact thing, but making sure that the racket doesn't hit my hand. The hand or the racket is chasing the hand, but the hand is running away from the racket. So if you watch, the hand's running away from the racket. their hands running away from the racket. And you can see how combining these things together, gravity dropping the racket, and then speeding up my hips, making sure that the hand is running away from the racket, it automatically triggers my hips and my shoulders to rotate into the ball without even thinking about it. So now, if we want to do the whole thing together, all we're going to do is toss the ball, okay? Keep my hand here and make sure my hand runs away from the racket. So, gravity, and there you go. You can see how my hand is constantly here running away from my racket, and what I'm getting is my shoulder and hips to turn into the ball, which means my shoulders and hips are constantly running away from the ball, but accelerating my racket into the court. Now there's one more thing, is that now that you know how to hit an efficient ball, what type of ball should you hit to make and drive your opponent crazy? And you can learn how to do that in this video right here.